Cenjeno poslušalstvo, pozdravljeni v RS intervjuju. Danes se javljamo neposredno iz kluba Channel Zero, kjer se pogovarjamo z Gregom Obisom, kitaristom in vokalistom čikaške post-punk zasedbe Stuck. Stuck so na evropski turneji, danes pa se v okviru te evropske turneje ustavljajo pri nas, torej v Channel Zero, kjer bojo ob 8. zvečer igrali z domačini Suzi Soprano. At this point, we will switch to English,
okay,
so that we can welcome our guest. Greg, hi. Thanks for taking the time to do this. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm also great. It's a lot of fog in here, but
yes,
you know, it's a nice little ambience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So first time in Slovenia. How do you find it? I heard you got pulled over.
We got pulled over first thing. The people from whom we rented our van and gear, they did warn us that like there's like you need a sticker to drive in the highways because they don't have tolls here. And I couldn't remember. They said which countries that were. I couldn't remember. But yeah, they just like the second I got off the highway, they just swooped in and yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. Just one of those fun surprises that you have on tour that really new expenses. But yeah, it's fine.
Nice. Have you been in Europe before?
No, I have not. I've been to the UK. I went to the UK in high school, but never to mainland Europe. And so it's been wild and really cool to get to see all of these different countries and cultures and cities and kind of experience them firsthand and learn what they're about. I think my bandmates have. I think all of them have. But yeah, I'm the lone one who's like totally new to all of it.
And what's the weirdest thing that happened on tour so far?
Oh, the weirdest thing. Let me think about that. I mean, nothing's been too wacky. I mean, honestly, like, yeah, I mean, nothing's been too wacky or weird so far. I guess there's not any like one thing I can point to. If I think of anything, I'll let you know. But I mean, honestly, just like I will say that something that has been an adjustment has been just the level of hospitality and gratitude that people here, like you know, all across Europe, like have for artists. And you know, yeah, just like in the U.S., it's very uncommon that you get like, you know, put up with a place to stay or like, you know, you will a lot of the times, but it's like, you know, you'll get, but it's usually like somebody's like apartment that's like, you know, they like share a small apartment with like 4 people and it's very DIY and you have to carry your sleeping bag and all that. But here it's been people are just very accommodating and, you know, just like, you know, very generous with, you know, booking accommodations or feeding you or just making sure you're like well looked after. And that's been a very new experience for all of us, I think. You know, I don't think we've really gotten that much of anywhere in the U.S. It's pretty wild.
Nice. That's cool to hear. So let's get to it.
Mm-hmm.
I would first start with, how would you introduce Stuck? What are you guys all about? Who are you guys and what are you guys all about?
Sure. So we are, I feel like, yeah, we're a band from Chicago. I feel like my elevator pitch for the band is usually that it's like a post-punk band that uses like the sonic palette of noise rock. So I like, and when we started, when the band was just kind of in its infancy and started forming, I was listening to a ton of like, you know, Marbled Eye and Uranium Club and Coneheads and this kind of thing was really speaking to me, and I wanted to make music like that. But at the same time, I come from this, like, Chicago has a long tradition of noise rock. I work for Bob Weston from Shellac, and you know, and was listening to a lot of Jesus Lizard at the time. So I was really into that kind of clangy guitar tone, and you know. I like and like clangy bass tone, and so I wanted to like, you know, kind of make this you know, edgy, frenetic post-punk music, but with this like kind of more like 90s noise rock thing, and I think it's like, it's, you know, I think over time, you know, we've kind of been you know, lumped in with the eggpunk thing, which I guess is like I put like eggpunk on our Bandcamp as a tag because it's like I don't know if you like you know Coneheads or Snooper, then you know you might like us as well. But I don't know. Some people seem to think that. I don't know if I totally 100% agree. But if that is what you think of it, then that's great as long as you like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my very big elevator pitch. But yeah, we have. Yeah, from Chicago, we put out an album in 2020. We put out an album last year, just under a year ago, called Freak Frequency, and that's about it. Yeah.
And who are you guys in the band?
Yeah, so it's it's right now the band is me and Tim Green and David Elgrim, and Tim plays the drums, David plays the bass, and then. We have we're traveling with somebody who's playing second guitar for us right now, who's Zach Elias, and then but yeah, it's the core of the band is me and Tim and David, and Tim does all of the graphic design work for the band, and which is I don't know I'm always saying this, but it's like to me like having like a united like visual aesthetic for a band is like almost as important as the music itself, and Tim's extremely talented and good at what he does, and I'm very grateful to be in a band with him who's been able to kind of like define like the visuals for the group.
Yeah, the visuals are really good. Like the Freak Frequency cover, I find it really nice. It was
cool.
Really, and it fits with the music. I thought so. So it's hard to find this balance between sound and image. So yeah, if I move on, I would like. I just go to the beginning, right? The beginning of Stuck, you know. Stuck was born, you put out your first release in 2018, an EP titled 3 Songs, right?
Yes, yeah, I forgot about that. I glossed right over that earlier.
Okay.
Sorry.
But no problem. But I would say that like the late 2010s were somewhat of a good period, a nice little age for post-punk revival, where a bunch of bands started adopting like this sonic aesthetic of driving bass lines and some kind of a little bigger moment of melancholic and societally critical lyrics came up again. So yeah, what was the scene like at the time in Chicago, and how did you fit in at the start?
Sure, yeah, totally. The Chicago has a really awesome music scene. We're totally spoiled by it, and especially at that time, it was really exciting for me. I think there was a lot of I think as I mentioned earlier, you know, bands like Coneheads or Uranium Club or Marbled Eye or like and others were things I was like listening to a lot of the time. But then locally there was Deeper, who are close friends, the Hex, who are also close friends, Milk Belly, Meatwave, just to name a few of those bands. It was just like all those bands were like going around, and I think especially with like I think like Deeper and the Hex were like kind of a big touchstone for me. I love both of those bands to death. Dave Vitrano from the Hex actually mixed he mixed our first record and also 2 singles that we put out a few weeks ago. But I think a lot of the way that kind of like influenced me or influenced us was that like I think we were interested in like using those kind of the way that like Deeper in the Hex, they have these like very like ornate interweaving guitars, and I wanted to do something like that, but to have it be dissonant and to have it sound like just like really crunchy chords and kind of like unsettling melodies and stuff like that, along with these like interlacing thing that like Deeper in the Hex are so good at. That's kind of like what it was like around that time. I mean, there's a zillion great bands in Chicago. I could go on and on, but I think like that were like bands that were like really specific to what we're doing. Is like those are the ones I would highlight.
Yeah, before when we were talking, you mentioned that like the scene is very much alive and in a good place right now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I guess it evolved even more with time, including you as you evolved with. I would say that you evolved sonically a little bit. I really like the album Freak Frequency that you released last year, which we also reviewed on Radio Študent. Was an awesome, in my mind, an awesome force of like driving sound, and it highlighted lyrically and both, I think, thematically with the dissonant guitars and jagged elements, like some of the modern day alienation, depression, cynicism, and all those feelings of that come with the moment of capitalist realism in modern day America.
Yes.
And how did the process look like when you were creating this record, and how did this process affect you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, I mean, a lot of it is like, you know, was, we put out our first record, Change is Bad, in 2020, and, in April. So like right as lockdown started to happen. And then pretty much, I went like right back, you know, I was like unemployed for like, I think 4 months. And so a lot of the record was written around that time, which is obviously, you know, that was just such a you know, dark time for everyone, you know, and so, you know, it was like, you know, I think like in Change is Bad, like, you know, I'd kind of started to explore these themes of like the United States and capital itself being like, you know, this death cult, and you know, what that means, and what that, how it not only like, you know, what it means in this kind of like abstract view, but also as like from like a very personal thing, like what does it feel like to live in it, and it just feels like all that stuff got like so hyped up during COVID, and so I wouldn't say it was like a, like, you know, I mean, I would not say this was like a pandemic record by any means, but I think that like at that time, a lot of things that were, you know, dysfunctional and problematic about the U.S. in particular were like really like laid bare and like mask off, and like, you know, nobody was even like, you know, under any, you know, pretense of you know, trying to make this like seem okay. And it was it was a yeah, I think that's what was kind of going through my head at that time. You mentioned, you said capitalist realism, and I was reading a lot of Mark Fisher at the time as well, and he rocks. But yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, I think that maybe answers the question. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure if, I feel like I just like went on a total tangent. I'm not sure if
hey, that's awesome. Right, that's why we're here for. That's why we're here for.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's kind of like, you know, yeah, and then we it's kind of like, you know, wind up wrapping up the record, you know, after the lockdowns had sort of ceased, and stuff, and, you know, yeah, I think kind of like, you know, came to you know, maturation over time, over the course of that, like, you know, 2 to 3 year period. But yeah, I don't know, that's kind of like the broad strokes of the record, is just, yeah, this like, what it feels like to be living through this, you know, yeah, alienating and dark time, and like tearing your hair out. And I think, yeah, it's something that like, I also like, I recorded the record, like I recorded all the instruments. It was mixed by this guy, Graham Walsh, and then I mastered it. But I think there's an element of the record too that's important to highlight, that I definitely lost my mind during the recording process, because I was just like really struggling to get everything right, and like how I wanted it to be in sound, and I think there's a certain element of like hearing me tearing my hair out, which kind of like, or just from the recording process itself, which sort of like plays into the very panicked feeling of the you know, the content of the songs themselves.
Yeah. It's definitely very frenetic and very like out there, very energetic vocals that are really like selling us this believable despair, you know, or telling us this horrible. Again, with like a touch of cynicism, a touch of like detachment, and I think it's really well done and well recorded. So congrats on that. So
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk about lyricism at this point. I think, as you've said, you know, the depressive realities and everything, you often focus on that. Maybe when I said let's talk about lyricism, maybe I wasn't meaning anything specific in mind, more like maybe conceptual, because you talk a lot about the depressive reality of modern day America, but then how do you help yourself from falling into like a cynical mindset or becoming depressed yourself? How do you use the music like as a vessel to deal with this, or how do you, you know, you're talking a lot about everything that's very much very depressive facts, very depressing realities. Where do you see optimism? Where do you see how do you keep going?
Oh yeah, good question. I don't know how. I think that I guess I mean I do find all of it very depressing and dark. I think there's like on the record, I think there's like some like elements of like optimism. You know, and I think there's some moments of optimism. For example, like on the song "Break the Arc," it's sort of like it's intentionally supposed to be a little naive sounding of like wanting to be like, I just want to, break this slow arc of history and just like remake it all at once. And that's just not something that any of us can do. You've seen a lot of that in the last like 10 years from like various social movements. That haven't been able to totally deliver on the things that the future that they envision. But I think that even like speaking to that kind of hope and that kind of drive is something that I want to highlight. It's tough. I try not to get too dark. I keep on talking about this, like the past recordings. I keep on in the back of my head. I keep on thinking about how Breezing Over, that we put out a EP and. 2022 on Exploding in Sound Records. I think that the last track on that song has sort of like a sort of like hopeful message as well, which is like kind of this like looking inward. It's called Playpen of Descent, and it's this sort of like inward looking song about I can write all of like these like anti-capitalist anthems all day, but like this doesn't like change anything. And I don't really have a very like I don't really believe in like the power of music itself to change the world. Like I think that's like kind of like especially in the US, like this like narrative about like the 1960s like counterculture that eventually was just like sort of subsumed into like this like liberalism, and so I don't really have a lot of belief in that. And that song's sort of about that. It's like art is important, but it's not going to solve our problems. And it's like, and the way that it kind of lands is like, what's like, well, like organizing is probably about the best thing you really have at this point. Is like or organizing and forming solidarity with your coworkers, your friends, your family, and all that.
Communities.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And obviously that's on the EP before that. But yeah, I think that so I feel like that like I try not to be like too doom and gloom, and like I try to like try to have some moments of not only hope but also like levity, and even if it is like this kind of like sardonic sense of humor that shows up a lot in the band. I guess like personally, I don't know. I think that a lot of the time I just kind of like I feel like in terms of just like keeping going, I feel like there's not much else to do but just kind of like keep my head down and keep working on stuff, and and keep writing songs. I wish I had like a better answer than that. I don't know. Try to stay off Twitter, basically.
Go offline.
Yeah. Touch grass.
Exactly. A little bit backtracking a little bit to the album again, but at the start you already mentioned the eggpunk thing, right?
Yeah.
I do think it's a very like internet micro thing to call something like eggpunk, but for me this is like here I wrote down the question. Another thing about Freak Frequency was the stylishly incorporated, and I said Devo weirdness, like that style. And I just wanted to ask you, like weird synthesizers, jagged guitars, this like it's a very like goofy almost aesthetic, and I really like that. And how did you like go on about creating such a sonic identity? You mentioned many bands like at the beginning, but Oh
yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it is funny because like I guess like I think that like I and a lot of people who are kind of like labeled as eggpunk bands sort of like bristle at that term. as I think any band bristles at any like, you know, anything that like feels like it's gonna pigeonhole them or whatever. Into like a certain thing, but yeah, Devo is like a huge influence. I love Devo so much, particularly those like first two records. The demo, the opening track from Freak Frequency, The Punisher, was like the working title of it was Mother's Bow for like a very, very long time. And I love Devo so much. I just think that like, you know, they were kind of like a band that I was slow to get into. Like, you know, I think that like everybody's like, they're one of those bands that like everybody's like ambiently aware of through their youth. But my old bandmate from my old band Yeesh, Peter Reale, was like the person who really kind of sat me down and made me listen to them like with a little bit more intention. But yeah, they're just like true freaks from the Midwest of America, and they like were so weird and so innovative and so smart, and like not only I mean just like, you know, like one of those bands that's like they're not like too smart, they just like totally rock, but like at the same time they're so boundary pushing, and they're definitely a huge influence for me, definitely like sonically as well, like with some of like the synthesizers and kind of like the jaggedness of the guitars. I think that like it's sort of like, yeah, we try to like I feel like it's definitely an influence, and we try to like, you know, kind of deliver on it in this way that like is kind of like, once again, like looking back to, you know, Jesus Lizard or Shellac or even a band like X Models, this kind of like more noisy or, you know, post-punky thing. But yeah, they're a huge one for me, definitely.
Nice. So yeah, let's move on to the tour. Right now you're on tour. You're done with UK, you're done with France, right? And you're done with Italy. You just came from Italy. How would you describe your experience so far on tour?
It's been wild. Yeah, I mean, like as I mentioned before, people here are like very like across the board are, you know, very. I think there's like a different appreciation of like not only art and artists, but also just like music and musicians itself. Like I think there's a lot more people. We played a lot of shows where you know, it's you know, like somebody's like showing up to the show not because they know who we are, but just because they're like kind of there for like the gig. You know, they're just like aware that there's like a show happening and they want to see it, which rocks. I wish it was more like that in the US. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. I don't think we haven't played, you know, really too many bad shows. I would say that like on the whole, like I would say that the quality of the shows has been like more consistent and positive here than it usually is for us in the US. And it's been awesome. Yeah, I think that probably my favorite show so far was in Paris. We played at this venue called Supersonic, and they have a really interesting business model where like the shows during the week are free, but then the shows during the weekend is like they'll do like, you know, Yacht Rock Saturday night or you know, some like you know, dance show, and then people kind of like, you know, pile in for the, you know, these free shows. And yeah, it was wild. People were moshing to songs that I've never seen people mosh to before. Like just like the slow, sad songs, people are like shoving each other, and I was like, that rules. Yeah, so that was really a really fun one. But yeah, on the whole, it's just been really like, I don't know, super fun and exciting.
And how do you find like the venues compared to the US?
They're great. I mean, you know, certainly there's like some that are, you know, I mean, yeah. I don't want to be too disparaging. There's there's venues in the US that like I really love and do treat artists really well. You know, Chicago itself is full of them, like you know, Empty Bottle or Sleeping Village or you know, Talia Hall, like other spots like that. You know, they do really treat people well. But yeah, it's on the whole, I think that like, you know, yeah, people are just like very or the venues themselves are like, you know, very accommodating and, you know, and kind and generally sound good and feel good. Yeah, I don't know. They've been cool. It's been positive. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, you've just also released 2 new singles.
Yes.
Deep Tunnel and AITA, which I think stands for Am I the Asshole?
That is right. Yeah.
So yeah, what can you tell us about the new music and what else do you have planned?
Yeah. So yeah, those are two new songs. We had I think like around this time last year, we were about to put out the new record, Freak Frequency, and I think we were like, I think I had some demos at the time for some new music, and I think we thought like we just booked out studio time with again our friend Dave Vitrano at the studio called Decade in Chicago, thinking that we would probably have like, oh, we'll have like 4 or 5 songs by then, but like we got to the date and we only had like like 2 songs that were like kind of done. So we got into the studio and we wound up like finishing a lot of it in the studio. With a lot of guidance from Dave, who's again like a good friend and really smart, creative energy and audio engineer. He rocks. So yeah, we wound up kind of wrapping those songs up just kind of quickly. Yeah, Deep Tunnel is kind of like the focus track. It's like it's sort of I feel like it's kind of the song is about in Chicago there's like I always get like I don't know, sometimes I try to pack so many ideas into a song and then like when I have to start explaining it, it's like so hard for me to like even untangle what it is talking about. But it's sort of about this like deep tunnel that is underneath Chicago. It's like this like water infrastructure project that was like passed by Congress in the 1960s, because Chicago is like built on a swamp. And when it rains a lot, like the water backs up into people's basements and stuff like that. So they built this like deep tunnel system where like the sewers drain into this deep tunnel, which then drains into these reservoirs in the suburbs. And these like massive tunnels. And I had no idea about this until like, less than a year ago. It's just like wild to be like, what? There's like a massive, and just like a very intimidating phrase, deep tunnel. But it was like made to, just because of like, the like flooding sewer system in Chicago, and now with global warming, and like has like caused like increased rains and increased like severity of rains in the summertime in particular, and this like deep tunnel system's like getting overwhelmed now, and so like this summer I think there was a few times where like the these like reservoirs got backed up so much that they had to like divert the water, like sewage, wastewater, like into the lake, into Lake Michigan. And it was designed to do that, but it wasn't designed to do that like several times a summer. So it's like this, like now this, kind of like big infrastructural problem within the city. And I think I just kind of saw this as like a metaphor for like, as much as you try to set yourself up for success and, try to, this very doom and gloomy, but like as much as you try to like set yourself up for like some kind of success and like some sort of like positive infrastructure in your own life, like circumstances can just like render all of that meaningless, and just kind of like set you back at square one. And kind of looking at that through like the guise of my own life, and looking back and like feeling like there's like this kind of like wasted time that I could have been doing more, could have been like setting things up better, and just sort of feeling like this like hopelessness, as I don't know, sort of again, it's a lot, and just kind of trying to tie it all together, and then yeah. Am I the Asshole? It's kind of like a chaser to that song, where it's like, it is very much about, I think it is like sort of, it's a song about like, I don't know, my own insecurities and just like fearing that, I don't know. I think I was in a period last year where I was, I feel like I was just getting into a lot of conflicts with friends and feeling like everybody was kind of like out to get me or something. And so the song is just sort of about that phrase. It's like if you, I don't exactly remember exactly what the phrase is, but it's like if you go out and you meet like 10 assholes every day, maybe you're the asshole.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like starting to feel like that, like maybe I was the problem. But it's sort of done in this like again like sardonic tongue-in-cheek way, where it's like I'm unable to see the truth of the matter.
Yeah. So thanks for that. And what do you got coming next?
Oh yeah, coming up, I don't know. We have we put out the record. We did a lot of touring last year. in the US. This tour is kind of around not only those new songs, but, mainly around the new record. And I don't think we're going to be doing a lot of touring after that. I think we're all pretty road weary and ready to focus on whatever comes next. I think we'll probably record another record, hopefully. But I don't really know when that's going to happen. We're kind of just in like the demoing zone, throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what works. And I feel like we'll probably be there for a while as we kind of like, lick our wounds from touring so much. Yeah, but and then I guess I don't know. Yeah, we do have we're playing this music festival in Savannah, Georgia called Dog Days in June, and doing a few dates in the South around that. But I think after that, I don't know if we're really going to be doing much. So except for just getting our nose to the grindstone and writing more sad, depressing songs.
What's going to be your comfort thing when you get home?
Ooh, good question. What is going to be my comfort thing? I don't know. I mean, honestly, to be totally honest, and I guess this won't be a total. I guess it won't be a total shock. I definitely have talked a lot about video games in interviews in the past, and a lot of the songs themselves have kind of contain these video game references. But the Elden Ring DLC drops in June, and I started playing it a month or two before tour to kind of catch up, refamiliarize myself with the gameplay, and so I'm looking forward to getting home and beating Elden Ring for the second time, being ready for the DLC to drop. Also spending time with my girlfriend when I'm not doing that. But yeah, that's kind of. And then So that's probably it. Those two things.
Nice.
Video games and my girlfriend.
Nice. That's pretty awesome. Greg, thanks again for taking the time to talk with us. That's about all that I've prepared, and thanks for the great answers and thanks for your time. Cenjeni poslušalci, poslušali ste intervju z Gregom Obisom, vokalistom in kitaristom čikaške post-punk zasedbe Stuck. Čez nekaj ur bodo špilali v Channelu, ujamete jih pa lahko potem še v Bratislavi, v Linzu, v Halle in v Berlinu. Glasbo pa lahko poslušate na njihovem bandcampu. Z vami sem bil Jaša, z vami je bil Greg in hvala, se slišimo prihodnjič.